Hello, good people. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, from wherever you are. Happy to be back to the studio. Um, Richard here, as usual. Back to our community, Serve Your Time, if you in for the first time. And it's been, I think, about 2 weeks, I think, since we last had a post. But I'm glad to be back and to be sharing as usual. If you're new again for the first time, the purpose of this channel is to create a community where we can share, learn and learn, live and laugh, and at least in the hope that someone out there would pick a lesson or be inspired and relate to life as matters stand. So we usually like to do talk about things that relate us as we go through life as we know it, and hoping that these lessons could be something that we learn from, and as a community. So yes, so today I it's maybe someone out there would know, who, if you've been following me on WhatsApp, or if you had been viewing my status. I think a week ago I mentioned that I would be talking about a topic called signal versus noise, and just and how that relates to life, and day-to-day experiences. But first, I want to give a shout out to my good friend Terry, I am Dem Yaya, branch manager, for being the 50th subscriber. I made a promise that I would reach out, and I have to fulfill that promise. So Terry, thank you for being the 50th subscriber to the channel, and I hope that you will find the channel fairly productive, or rather inspiring, or there's something for you to at least pass on to the community around us as we know it. So signal versus noise, right? So if you had seen my previous post, I think that was in a week or so. I think 2 3 weeks ago, when I just freshly shaved my head, and I think that I spoke about, there was a post, there was a video that I did, which I think I called water, right? Acceptance, equates to acceptance, like water, and water equates to love. Rock and resistance, like a rock, which in itself yields hate and things like that. And in that video, actually, I think along the way I spoke about when you hit rock bottom, and then there's rejection in from the world as we know it. That is, so you're trying to achieve a certain goal, and it's not working, and or you're trying to achieve a certain personal achievement, and things are not working, business. So then when you get the bottom, where you hit rock bottom, then you realize, okay, so how do I move from here? And then I think I said that the rejection you receive from the world, that is the people around you, your inner circle, your family, and or your loved ones, or your workmates, in itself could be, a signal, right? And I use an example of, let's assume that you are, if you go to take a flight, you would see mostly at the airport, there's always a signal to the flight before takeoff or before landing, for direction purposes. And at that time, I was looking at signal in relation to when things happen to you or for you, and especially against you when the world rejects you, when things are not moving. Now, that rejection that comes from your networks, your inner circle, people around you, in itself could be a signal to help you transition from resistance, right, which is hatred, to acceptance, which is love, and equating to water. Now, that was, my belief as in relation to life, and as I knew it, and as I know it, as at that time. And but then I've had like a week at least of leave and reflection after going through a lot of work stress, and being extremely hitting rock bottom, and then trying to find myself along the way after rock bottom. So I mean, one of the things that I took up almost immediately is to try and bond with nature. Just took like a week off, obviously, doing work, but sort of the things that have to be done, as opposed to entirely being all in this. Because I mean, normally for entrepreneurs, it's difficult to actually say that you've taken leave, because everything sort of like revolves around your presence in one way or the other. Obviously, it gets better with time, but even if you had a huge team, if you're an entrepreneur, you'll always find yourself being involved. So sometimes you don't even know when to stop. You don't even know when to take a break. You don't even know how to separate work from work-life integration, as my counselor loves to call it, or balance, as people want to call it. So sometimes you find yourself that you're so in it, right? You're so in it that in fact you're not able to distinguish the difference between noise and signal, right? Because then you're frustrated, you are sort of like you have a mental block, which in itself would sort of like get in the way of the body mind connection, right? And that that's it, for the most part, affects how you handle situations, or how you deal with things around you. But again, it's life as we know it. So so with that, having taken some time off, so I began reflecting on that noise signal thing. But also I actually also this topic was triggered also by a few readings I was doing on during my leave time, and I came across that discussion, and actually the signal versus noise thing is most popular. In fact, I think it was begun by the great late Steve Jobs of Apple. And actually, it is said that Steve Jobs had, in his lifetime, had what we call an 80% signal to noise ratio, meaning that he was switched on 80% of the time, and 20% of the time that was a noise. But then of late, it is said that people like Elon Musk, for example, is 100% signal, meaning that is that gentleman is switched on every second of a minute, every hour of meet is working time. That is, I think, I don't know what but I think last time I checked, he was almost doing 18 hours work, out of the 24, which is crazy, right? And of course, the results speak for themselves. I mean, given that given what he's achieved, but of course, then obviously that's again from what when you read out there, what happens is that when you have a higher strong signal to noise ratio, chances are you probably might be socially awkward, because you switch on, your mental switch on in terms of dedication to what you're doing is crazy, right? So, but what I found out there was that signal in itself is viewed as is an example of, let's say, business entrepreneurship. So the most important thing was, or rather relevant thing was, if you have goals, right, in a day, forget about what you want to do tomorrow, what you didn't do yesterday, but what you're supposed to do now. Again, actually, I think maybe in future I'll talk about what I call the past, the present, and the future. Ideally, the fact that for me, the past, and at least what I've learned over time, and maybe people have spoken about this, the past is a history, right? The future is a mystery. The present is the moment, and we live in the moment. Meaning, we must be mindful of the past, the history, be ambitious into the future, the mystery, but live in the moment while having that in mind. And I think I'll talk about that maybe at some point in future, in terms of as a topic maybe. However, so when you're in life, when you have a higher signal ratio versus noise, your chances of succeeding in whatever it is that you do are usually higher, closer to the ratio of the signal versus noise. Now, signal out there is mostly, if let's say you wake up today, you have 4 things you want to do, right? You have things that you have to do, and those things that if they're not done, right, they might affect how you categorize or how you define your success, or it will even affect your work life, your family life. So the key thing is, whatever it is that you need to do, business or not, if you have 3 things that have to be done in the time of between when you're active, that is in the day, until you rest. So the signal is the focus on those things. Everything else outside that is noise, right? And if it's a typical, let's say work life, right? You have 4 things you want to achieve in the day. Now that's your signal, and the noise could be everything else. It could be even as simple as distraction from the kids, for example, or the people, your loved ones, or your workmates, your colleagues at work, and innocently. So, but what could be noise, okay, can easily become signal. So the question is, how do you identify, how do you define your signal, right? Because it's not cast in stone. The key thing is, and what I took from my reflection is that you need to understand what's your signal, right? Every day when you wake up, you need to define what's your signal for those 24 hours, at least for the 12 hours. Let's say if you're 9 to 5, for the 8 hours, if let's say maybe if you're 9 to 5, but for the 8 hours you'll be working, or rather for the 12 hours you'll be active. So it could be, for you, it could be networking, right? It could be family, but as long as you're able to understand, right, that this is my signal, everything else is noise, right? And set out, focus your mind to understanding what your signal is and what the noise is. At the end of the day, what will happen is that you will have you will be able to to increasingly ensure that you are focused on the signal and manage the noise. So, for example, let's say you are a 9 to 5 person, right? If you're a 9 to 5 person, what will happen is you will find yourself, let's say you have 2-3 assignments, right, in the day that you really have to accomplish, right? Now, so between the 9 to 5, right, time frame, your signal will have to be those 3 things, right? However, you could also, at the same time, after 9 to 5, right, you have a social life, you have family, you have friends, right? Now, there are things that need to be done, for instance, after 5. So now those things, let's say you have to, you're going, you have dinner with your loved one, or you have a meetup with your friends, or you are supposed to attend a social function, or you're going to home to cook, or whatever it is. Now, it is really up to you to know that before 9 to 5, for example, this other aspect is noise. But once you switch after 5, now it becomes a signal. Like you have to make that your point of focus in the sense that anything outside that in that period, right, becomes noise. So, meaning you should be able to understand what is your signal and when, what is your noise and when, and then when does this potentially signal switch to noise, when does the noise switch to signal. So in meaning that at any one point, if it's signal, give it what it has to be given, right? And in between 9 to 5, your signal push, because normally out there when you watch recent podcasts, thing is, if you're 50-50, if your ratio noise to signal to noise ratio is, let's say, 50-50, chances are you will not get anywhere. You will just be, katikati all the time, in the middle, right? However, if you can get to maybe 60 and above, right? Between 60, above 50, between 60, let's say, and 80, fantastic, right? And this can happen at any stage of the switch. So for me, bottom line is that I think that you can define your signal and define your noise, right? So it could be the things that you value, the things that you perceive as your success journey, right? Your values, and focus on those, right? Again, in the present, bearing in mind the future, the mystery, learning from the past, the history. So at the end of the day, when all is said and done, it will be, you will measure your failure or success based on how much time or how much focus you give to a signal. And again, it goes down to, it's not, I don't think it's like static or a cast in stone, or it's purely just, entrepreneurship or work, no, or purely just a social life. No, I think I mean, it's relative. It depends. It swings based on your values of at the time, your objectives at the time, and how you see things, present themselves to you. So because if let's say, you know what's good for you, right? It could be in a business transaction, right? You have your objective, you have your goal, how you want to, what you want to achieve through that particular transaction, or if it's a relationship, or if it's that could be friendship, it could be love, it could be work, it could be anything. It could even be family relations with your family, right? Now the thing is, you will sort of get a lot of advice, a lot of guidance, a lot of and genuine, by the way, genuine guidance, genuine advice from maybe your friends. But then, like they say, let many advise you, but none decide for you. So sometimes we find that even noise can come from people who really actually mean well, but they just don't know better. They just don't know what's. They mean well, but perhaps they want you, to stay where you are, be, like, because change is always uncomfortable for everyone. Now the thing is, it will usually be upon you to know, okay, what's my focus, what's my ambition, what's my goal, right? Now, as long as that is clear, and you have a clear understanding of what it will take for you to achieve that, now everything outside that certainly is noise. Now you find yourself, if you swing, if you swing, today you hear this, then it changes. Learn from the noise, by the way, right? Learn from the noise, but don't give it too much attention. Always be focused on the signal. The noise can help you actually shape the signal, right? Can help you redefine, improve the signal. But the focus must always be the signal, because there will always be noise. There will always be noise. And sometimes it comes, again, like I said, from family, friends, people who mean quite well, but maybe they don't have the experience to point you to the signal. And maybe it will not be comfortable for you to achieve the signal, right? But as long as you are able, I think, to understand that there's no differentiation between the difficulty, the pain in achieving the signal, and sometimes it could mean, you feel probably hurt, or you would feel exhausted, you will feel depressed, stressed, but you must always focus on the signal and be reminded that everything outside is noise. How do I, and again, you hear the noise, okay, but doesn't mean you listen. There's a difference. Or even if you listen, doesn't mean you'll act on the noise, but the noise can point you in a direction that gets you to achieve the signal much better. So being that meaning at the same time that you need to identify your signal, know your noise, and as and when these things switch, focus. So that is my view. That is how I see those two things, and I would love to hear, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear anything that you would, how you would associate with that kind of scenario, or and how that would play out in the world we live in. But again, the funny thing is that sometimes we talk about things, like in this case, this community. I'm talking about things because I believe, and that's how I see things. But sometimes you should be always open to learning. But however, the one thing I've come to realize actually is that, and that's why this channel for me is actually, it's one of the most fun things I think I've ever done in my life. If I'm being very honest, I mean, I find it most exciting. Again, I think it's because I love to share. And what I'm even saying might be noise, but it could be a signal for someone else. And there's no monopoly of knowledge, But also, because I think the nature of humanity is that everyone has something to offer, right? But how often do we talk about, what we think? Maybe you may not be able to see things the way I see them, or maybe you see things differently. But the thing is, there's no right or wrong, And I've come to learn that. I think this is my 8th video or something like that. And I think humanity, in the absence of especially external factors, distractions, is able to be novel in terms of, like, I think, and that's the one thing that we as a human race have, and we must always remember to preserve, because the conscious mind, that's what differentiates us from animals and plants and all these are living things, right? But that also, for me, means that there's a level of uniqueness, right, that we have, that cannot be compared. As in, just imagine if we were all the same, right? If all humans were the same, we think the same, we like the same things, we love we hate the same things, it would be a terribly boring world, right? And I really find it very fulfilling, being able to sit here, share, and I think I really love this. But also, every human being, I think, is unique, right? We're all unique, and we all have something to offer. Now the question is, how do you share what you share, right? How do you ensure that you don't, it's more like, there's no monopoly of ideas, for example, but you imagine how many people have ideas that could actually make the world, the community around us, a better place. But either someone they want to they want to implement, but they don't have either the capacity or the knowledge in terms of how to do it, then they just keep quiet. They just keep it to themselves, and then it never gets to be out there. And I think that if we approached life with that sort of mindset, because the whole point of working in the world of today as we know it is really, at the end of the day, number one, to provide for yourself, to have, to be able to have good health, eat, have good food, take care of your loved ones, take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones. But beyond that, why? If it's not for, because if you do what you do, whether it's private or public, right, and what you're doing is helping out, is making the site around you better, right, at the end of the day, you'll be in a better environment, right? It's like being in a family where you're the only person with means. 1000% that will be counterproductive, because at the end of the day, you'll always be, you'll have a burden, especially in the African context, because we are family. We are naturally people for family. We are extended in nature, and so the thing is, if you don't make an effort to better your family members, if you have the opportunity, if you have the capacity, it may actually come back to because you can either decide to forget, which is depressing, and if that's who you are, that's a personality thing, I guess, or do something about it and ensure that everyone around you, as much as you can, they are in a place where they can take off on their own, and in the very first place be able to take care of themselves, right? Let's say if the eldest in the family, and you have that challenge, do that, because in the end of the day, when they're able to do that, they'll take care of themselves. If you're lucky, they can even be there for you, but you must not think that is a guarantee. But at least they will be able to to help out with your parents. So because then there'll be a bit more to go around. But also maybe they will not maybe now drag you down, because now they are able to move on their own, and that's success. So bring that to the bigger world, which is beyond now the family, the nucleus. It would be more of in whatever it is that we do, right? You always hard to find a missing link, and I'll talk about that maybe in our next future topics, and just bridge the gap, right? And always try to ask yourself, what I'm doing today, how is this my work, if you're employed, or if you are a business person, an entrepreneur, or a leader, how are my efforts, right, making this community around me better? Because if you live in an environment where, as much as possible, everyone either thinks like you're even better, and everyone around you is doing something, whatever you do. That's why I love innovation. That's why I love technology in my practice, legal practice, because it's just fast tracks all these things, right? So, and you're able to have a huge impact. So the bottom line would be then that, how do you think about society around you? And this is something that, at least in the first world, you see that people, the focus is, you don't just necessarily set up shop, open a shop, for the sake of it, but you're thinking, especially impact-wise, you're thinking of, if I must open a shop here, what is the need around me, Then you could say that maybe in your locality, people are struggling to access, say, merchandise or medical care, and then you go in to bring medical care and merchandise closer, and then along the way, because you're creating value, right, you reap the benefit, which is money. And then there's nothing wrong with having money. Absolutely, you cannot actually, in this modern world, you be lying to yourself. Money is a major element to everything, because again, we have to move by and better. But it is not, you don't go in just to, if you go in just to make money, you will achieve it, but so what, because then it's a shorter ambition. Because if your goal is to achieve 1 million shillings today, you'll achieve it. And then what happens tomorrow? And so, but then if we go back to signal noise, you'd see that at that point, if your signal is to better yourself, succeed in your business, by all means, do it. However, it can be a lifetime signal, especially in the context of past history, present moment, future mystery. So you can, if you think about it, if you have a signal that can drop you into the future, the mystery. That is, for example, if your focus in whatever it is that you do is to try and make the community around you better, that can't stop. There will always be new things, new needs, new demands. Let's say in a specific area, right? If you're a teacher, or if you are an engineer, if you're a doctor, or if you are a social worker, a lawyer, or whatever it is you do. So if your signal is to do business, for example, but the aim is to try and have medical care accessible, or have legal services accessible, or have better roads and whatever it is. So that keeps dropping into the future, the mystery, because things keep changing. So you learn on the go. The point is, as long as you focus on the signal and distinguish the noise, you will never go wrong. So anyway, I see that we've probably spoken for quite long, and like I said, my videos are not necessarily scripted, really. It's also it's mostly things. I just want to keep it as real as it can get, and obviously hoping that someone will relate, and if there's one person out there who finds it of value, for me, that is success, 1000%. So I'm again, as usual, excited, happy, better, and very, 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 very grateful for this community. I'd love to know your thoughts, and let's see. Maybe I think the next video will be. I think actually I'm gonna talk about something to do with pain, in relation to muscles, because I've learned a thing or two when I went back to running after, I think, almost a couple of months when, you know, not being very active, and then now I had sore muscles, you know, all over my body, and something came to mind, you know, especially when you do deep tissue massage, the pain, right, and how you feel after the pain. I think there's something that we probably that will be our next topic. So thank you very much. Always grateful, and this community, I think, for me is everything I could have asked for. I can't say I should have begun the channel sooner, but the timing is always right, and you can only move forward. So thank you so much. I'm hoping that I'll catch you soon on the next one.